Okay, so what's up, guys? Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal has just concluded as a boxing match. And there's not really much to say. There's not a whole lot of stats that we could go off of or talk about the future of divisions because this fight and this card was basically fan service. And yeah, thank you for bringing us this nostalgic thing. And you know what's funny? You look back at the days of UFC, I think it was 244 when they fought, I believe. And that was like 5 years ago. So to see how far us as MMA fans have come and to see just how fast the sport has evolved in just half a decade, this fight was a reminder of how fast the sport moves. And then we get to take a look back in the great day where, I remember that MMA matchup, the BMF title, is now like 5 years old. And we remember when Jorge Masvidal put the brakes on Nate Diaz a little bit, and they had to stop it in the third round. But I feel like Nate Diaz was outclassed in MMA, so I was expecting Jorge Masvidal to take the victory home. I know that the decision was a little controversial. There's a lot of discussion about the score of boxing. I don't really know how it works, but from what I understand, boxing's gotten kind of a reputation for having some decisions go lofty ways. But hey, so does MMA now. So it just happens, it's what are you going to do? But I was actually, whether you think Masvidal won or not, I got to hand it to Nate Diaz because when I saw that Nate Diaz was going in a strictly stand-up fight against Jorge Masvidal, now Nate Diaz obviously has good hands on him, but he relies a lot on his cement head. Like the dude's head is made out of rocks or something like that because he could take punishment. He's known for that. The Diaz brothers just continuously move forward and could take hits and just keep marching, and then eventually they'll walk you down like a dog, and then they'll finish you just based on their toughness and grit. Now, when I saw them fight in MMA, Nate Diaz and Masvidal, seeing Masvidal like completely just take down Nate Diaz in the first round like that, I know that like with his strikes, the elbows, the knees, and kicks, which obviously isn't allowed in boxing, but I was expecting Masvidal to completely outclass Nate Diaz, so I just didn't think Nate Diaz really had anything to gain from this fight except proving a lot of people wrong. Whether the decision was right or not, you could say he did a lot better than I think a lot of us were anticipating him doing in a straight-up boxing match against Jorge Masvidal, who has probably better hands than Nate Diaz. And would I say he's got a better chin? Not really. He's been like flash KO'd by Kamaru Usman, but you're facing Kamaru Usman. However, just I think the fact that Nate Diaz did this well, and although it was a controversial hand raise to a lot of people, the fact that he was even in that ballpark to be even considered for the decision, it kind of shows that upsets happen. I consider this fight, although being fan service, the decision we came out with, nobody was expecting. I think a lot of us were expecting Jorge Masvidal as a heavy favorite just based on the last fights they've had. But when you translate it to a boxing ring, I guess you could say anything's possible. And yeah, that's all I got to say. I'm just glad I was able to see this spectacle. And yeah, congratulations to Nate Diaz. Now, what's he going to do next? I don't know. I mean, is he going to go back to the UFC? Probably not anytime soon. Is he going to go back to MMA? I don't know. The only real incentive I would see for him at this point to go back to the UFC or MMA would be a third Diaz fight against McGregor, where we'd have Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3. But since Conor McGregor is basically just trolling Michael Chandler at this point, to the point where a lot of people are in favor of Michael Chandler versus Islam Makhachev just to give Michael Chandler some sort of compensation for his dedication, I would have to say, I don't think that third McGregor fight's going to happen because if the current McGregor that's been partying were to go against Nate Diaz, I know Diaz has been partying too. That's kind of the Diaz way. He is notorious for the stickiest of the icky. But I think even then, just knowing where these fighters currently are, Nate Diaz has found a way to stay at least somewhat dialed in, where Conor just kind of seems like he's on his way out. I think even if they were to step into that actual ring or the cage or wherever they wanted to do their third fight, I think Nate Diaz would probably come out on top. That's just my honest opinion. But I've gone on long enough. Congratulations to Nate Diaz for proving me wrong. And yeah, I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace out.